What's up, everyone? Tara Roberts here with 444, and we are talking trade targets, players that you need to buy before your trade deadline. Before we get started, remember to like this video and subscribe. And if you want more fantasy insights and tips, head over to 444.com/plans and sign up for a subscription today. And exclusively for our YouTube audience, use promo code YouTube at checkout to save 25%. Now let's go ahead and dive right in at running back with my first player, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs' rest of season schedule looks awful because he plays Kansas City twice and faces multiple teams in the top half of DVOA against the run. So if Jacobs' schedule isn't fantastic, why am I recommending him? The answer is actually very simple. Volume. The Raiders team, it's just changed. And the team philosophy of interim head coach Antonio Pierce is very clear. They want to be a hard-nosed, grinding team. And that is great news for Josh Jacobs because he is a volume running back. Jacobs has had a total of 53 carries over the past 2 games, and that has resulted in over 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But maybe the Jacobs fantasy manager in your league isn't really tuned into what's happening here. Maybe they look at last week's fantasy points and all they see is 12.7 points and they want to bail out. There was no touchdown and he fumbled twice, so the number is actually pretty underwhelming. But the key here is volume. 27 carries on 83% of snaps in one of the most difficult matchups for a team. The Raiders will continue to lean on the run, and sheer volume alone means that Jacobs is a top 10 back rest of season. Moving on to my next trade candidate at wide receiver, my favorite wide receiver trade target, honestly, is Michael Pittman Jr. While others may turn away from a player that they just instinctually see as average, I lean into Pittman, who is statistically one of the most reliable wide receiver twos out there. He is averaging 15.4 fantasy points per game in PPR, making him wide receiver 14. And while you might be thinking those numbers are pre-Josh Downs breakout, over the time period that Downs has had his breakout, Downs has averaged 16.6 fantasy points per game. Pittman has still had the higher target share. He has averaged above his season average at 16.1 fantasy points. The conclusion here is Downs having strong games doesn't reduce the fantasy output for Pittman, i.e., a player can exist and thrive without another player being negatively effective. We can also look at Pittman's targets compared to wide receivers in general and understand why he is an excellent trade target. Pittman is 11th in average targets per game at wide receiver and 4th in total targets. While he'll occasionally have a low target game, which happens even to elite receivers, for the most part, you're expecting around double-digit targets from him on a very frequent basis. Volume is king. In fact, volume is so king for Pittman that Pittman has just one game with less than 10 fantasy points. But because his ceiling isn't at A.J. Brown level, fantasy managers overlook the value in Pittman. And because of that, while Pittman isn't technically a buy low, he is a buy below value because nobody really understands the actual value for him. He is a strong wide receiver 2 with legitimate top 10 upside that brings stability to your fantasy team. And we're going to close things out at tight end with Trey McBride. Trading for Trey McBride doesn't actually require a lot of justification. It's pretty simple. He is the second look for his quarterback, and that is pretty much an auto lock for any tight end, especially when said tight end is tied to a high-end quarterback. Since week 6, McBride is tight end 5 in PPR in total points and tight end 8 in average points per game. Those numbers get even significantly better if you consider the week 9 game was with Clayton Tune starting at quarterback and was truly negligible for the entire Cardinals team. In week 10 with Kyler Murray back, we saw exactly what we needed to see. The volume continued. It is possible that other Cardinals pass catchers can step up and contribute, but for now, McBride has strong usage in this offense, and I think it continues throughout the remainder of the season. It is possible that the fantasy manager in your league has multiple starting options at tight end and could be looking to offload one of the tight ends for another position. That's the goal here. Approach Trey McBride's manager who is thin at running back or receiver, and maybe they have bye week woes, and offer them a position that they actually need. That wraps things up for us. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like the video and comment below. And if you want more fantasy insights and tips, head over to 444.com/plans and sign up for a subscription today. And exclusively for our YouTube audience, use promo code YouTube at checkout to save 25%.